Pharaoh feared a prophecy, so he made a law: every Hebrew baby boy must die. The Nile became a weapon. Mothers cried. Hope seemed impossible, but in the middle of that terror, one baby was hidden. Not in a palace, not behind guards, but in a basket, placed directly on the river of death. What Pharaoh meant for destruction, God turned into protection. The child Pharaoh tried to kill was raised in Pharaoh's own house, educated by the empire, trained by the enemy. And one day, that baby would stand before the throne and say the words that would shake history: "Let my people go." How did a death sentence become divine destiny? And why does this story still matter for anyone who feels threatened, forgotten, or surrounded by impossible odds? Stay with us, because this is the moment God proves that destiny cannot be drowned. Have you ever heard a story so full of twists and turns it just has to be true? Today, we're diving into one of history's greatest ironies, the incredible story of a baby who escaped a death sentence and grew up to become the liberator of his people. This isn't just any story, it's the story of Moses. Imagine ancient Egypt, a land of pyramids and pharaohs. The Israelites, a growing population of immigrants, are living there as slaves. Their numbers are exploding, and this makes the reigning pharaoh incredibly nervous. He sees their growth not as a blessing, but as a threat to his power. What if they rise up? What if they join Egypt's enemies in a time of war? Fear can make leaders do terrible things. Pharaoh's solution was brutal and horrifying. He commanded his people, every baby boy born to the Hebrews must be thrown into the Nile River. It was a decree of pure terror, designed to crush the spirit and future of an entire nation. Can you even imagine the heartbreak and fear that swept through every Israelite family? Every cry of a newborn son was a countdown to a tragedy. But in the midst of this darkness, a flicker of hope and defiance was born. A Levite woman gave birth to a beautiful baby boy. For 3 months, she hid him, her heart likely pounding with every small sound he made. Every day was a gamble. The walls felt thin, the neighbors' ears too close. She knew she couldn't hide him forever. His cries would eventually betray them. With a heavy heart, she devised a desperate plan. It was a plan born of faith and a mother's fierce love. She took a papyrus basket, waterproofed it with tar and pitch, and gently placed her precious son inside. She wasn't just abandoning him, she was creating a tiny ark, a vessel of hope. She then carried this basket down to the Nile, the very river designated as a watery grave, and set him afloat among the reeds. His older sister, Miriam, stood at a distance, her eyes locked on the basket, watching with a mixture of terror and hope. Now, this is where the story takes a truly unbelievable turn. Who should come down to the river to bathe at that very moment? None other than Pharaoh's own daughter. She spots the basket floating among the reeds and sends her attendant to retrieve it. When she opens it, she sees the baby. And he's crying. In that moment, something shifted. Her heart was moved with compassion. She knew immediately this was one of the Hebrew children, a baby condemned by her own father's decree. But instead of following the law, she chose to defy it, looking at this helpless infant. She saw not a threat, but a life worth saving. Just then, the baby's sister, Miriam, who had been watching everything unfold, saw her chance. With incredible courage, she approached the princess. "Shall I go and get one of the Hebrew women to nurse the baby for you?" she asked. The princess, perhaps unsure of what to do next with a newborn, agreed. "Yes, go," she said. And who do you think Miriam brought back? Her own mother, the baby's mother. Can you feel the sheer relief and astonishment of that moment? The woman who had just given up her son to the river was now being paid by the royal court to nurse and care for him. She got to hold her baby again, to feed him, to love him, all under the protection of the very family that wanted him dead. It's an act of divine providence so perfect, you couldn't make it up. The princess told her, "Take this baby and nurse him for me, and I will pay you." So the mother took her son home, raising him through his early years. When the boy was old enough, she brought him back to Pharaoh's daughter, who adopted him as her own son. She named him Moses, which means to draw out, because, as she said, "I drew him out of the water." So, let's pause and take this in. The baby Pharaoh tried to eliminate, the child who represented the future of a people he wanted to control, was now being raised in the heart of the Egyptian palace. He was given the name Moses, a name that would forever tell the story of his miraculous rescue from the water. Moses grew up with all the privileges of an Egyptian prince. He received the best education, learning about Egyptian culture, politics, and military strategy. He was raised in the lap of luxury, walking the halls of power, completely unaware, for a time, of his true heritage. The very system that was meant to destroy him was now equipping him with the skills and knowledge he would one day use to dismantle it. Isn't that incredible? The irony is staggering. Pharaoh's plan to control the Hebrews by eliminating their sons had backfired in the most spectacular way possible. The deliverer of Israel was not growing up in a slave hut, but in the palace of their oppressor. God had turned the enemy's weapon back on himself. The Nile River, intended as a symbol of death, became a cradle of salvation. The house of Pharaoh, the source of the oppression, became the training ground for Israel's future leader. This story shows us how even in the darkest of times, when evil seems to have the upper hand, a plan of redemption can be unfolding in the background. It reminds us that no human decree can ever thwart a divine purpose. A mother's faith, a sister's courage, and a princess's compassion all played a part in this grand, unfolding drama. Moses' journey was just beginning. His life in the palace was just the first act. He would eventually discover his true identity, be forced to flee Egypt, and encounter God in a burning bush. He would then return to confront the new Pharaoh, possibly his own adopted brother, and demand, "Let my people go." The boy who was drawn from the water would one day part the waters of the Red Sea, leading his people to freedom. The child saved from a king's paranoid decree would become a prince, a shepherd, and ultimately, a prophet who would stand face to face with God and deliver his law to the nation. The story of Moses' birth is a powerful testament to hope. It shows that our beginnings, no matter how humble or dangerous, do not define our destiny. A baby in a basket, floating on a river of death, became one of the most influential figures in human history. His story challenges us to look for the hand of God in the most unlikely places and to believe that even the most hopeless situations can be turned around for an incredible purpose. What do you think is the most powerful part of this story? Let me know in the comments below. It's a story that has inspired millions for thousands of years, and it's easy to see why. Pharaoh believed power could erase purpose. He issued a decree, controlled an empire, and turned a river into a weapon. Yet the very river he chose became the place where God protected a future deliverer. Moses didn't begin his story with miracles. He began it hidden, waiting, raised by the enemy, and sure of who he really was. And maybe that's where some of you are right now. Not standing before Pharaoh, but standing between promise and fear. Wondering why God allowed the threat, the delay, or the struggle. So here's the question I want you to wrestle with. What if the thing meant to destroy you is actually preparing you to deliver others? Do you believe opposition is evidence of God's absence, or could it be the sign that your life carries purpose the enemy recognizes? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Is there a moment in your life where God turned danger into direction, or delay into destiny? Let's talk, because your story might encourage someone else watching right now. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more incredible tales from history. See you next time.